Hi, welcome to my channel called Nugget of Wisdom. It's been a little while since I posted a video. I've been recovering for about 6 weeks from an operation. And also, I've been thinking about why I'm doing this. it's like, what am I doing this for? Am I doing this to try and become popular in some sort of blog poster, webcast, some sort of guy who, makes money out of YouTube monetization and gets loads of followers and becomes the next Joe Rogan? What's the purpose of this? And I've thought about this quite a bit, and I think the purpose of this for me is actually to be able to express my authentic self. I think that's the real purpose of what I'm trying to do here. And so it doesn't really matter to me, to be honest, what the outcome is, because that's the achievement. So, if I get 5 views, 100 views, 1,000 views, if I get lots of views, I think it's great, because a lot of what I'm trying to say, I think, is really important. But I think everybody thinks what they're saying is important. And on that note, I think what I want to discuss here in this video is I have a constant preoccupation. I can't say the word. Preoccupation with what's going on in the Middle East and Gaza. I've struggled to get my head around it because I grew up in a country, I grew up in Ireland, and as a child we all learned about the Second World War, and we learned about the Nazis, and we learned about the concentration camps, and we were indoctrinated to believe that this sort of thing would never happen again, and that we should never allow it to happen again, and that the reason these things happened was because people allowed it, that the masses allowed these, people who were perceived to be evil, like Hitler, to do these terrible things. And then, of course, the West, Britain and Churchill and the US came in with the morals and the sort of standards and civilization, as civilized people, to stop it all. And that gave, especially America, gave us a sense that they were the custodians of morals. They were the guys who were looking out for the world and tried to make it a better place. And they were the guys who would not stand for any kind of, unethical, cruel, murderous behavior, savagery, or, whatever you want to call it, ethnic cleansing and all that sort of stuff. And I have to recalibrate. I have to readjust to a different world. And I think it's a world that we're all beginning to readjust to. And really, I was deluded. And is that my fault? Well, I was brought up to be deluded. I was brought up to believe propaganda, which just has turned out to be untrue. If you look, for example, in the last few days in LA, a terrible, terrible natural disaster has occurred. People have lost their lives, 15, 20, 30 people, but a fair few people have lost their lives unnecessarily, and properties have been completely destroyed, devastated. And I see the way people are reacting. It's understandable. Some people are really upset. Some people are blaming others, blaming the governor, blaming the president, blaming the local mayor, whatever, blaming the water company. But also I see this highly appropriate, reaching out. People saying, I want to help. I want to donate. I care about my neighbours. And what could we do to make this better for people? How could we rebuild in better ways? There's this blog post on there from builders talking about how you could create better homes that were more insulated or didn't have had fire retardancy, and zones around them protect them and so on. But there's a natural humanity. There's a natural humanity and respect for other human beings. And I can't help but imagine if the eyes of the world, which currently the US media and international media is there, and they're talking to people and they're looking at the fires and analysing the fires, if they saw a little girl of, say, 5 or 6 years of age, in rags, burnt, walking along the street carrying another girl on her shoulders who was injured after being hit by a car. And nobody cared. Nobody was doing anything. There'd be an outcry. There'd be an outcry. It would be global news. And I know that the people who lived there would rush out. They wouldn't just leave that girl on her own in the street. Those girls, they would rush out and they would try and help. Yet, just look at what is happening in Gaza. It's not a natural disaster. It's not nature. It's human beings. Human beings manufacturing and building bombs and weapons in the US, supported by the US and UK primarily, and where the taxpayers of these countries and their hard-earned money, it doesn't matter who you are, a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, a teacher, a portion of that tax is going into providing these weapons. And look at the outcome. Tens of thousands of innocent people dead. Tens of thousands of children and mothers dead. A complete town, urban space totally destroyed. Hospitals destroyed. Reporters killed. Doctors killed. And a military that is just, it's so obvious. A military, the IDF, going in and doing the most brutal things. Murdering and killing people indiscriminately. Destroying neighbourhoods indiscriminately. Laughing about it. Just look at the stuff, the most unsavoury stuff that has been put on the internet from the soldiers in the IDF. The mocking and the laughing. Absolutely no respect for any kind of humanity, human decency, respect for others. None. And they will say, oh, it's because of the atrocity that was carried out on us on October 7th, when Hamas came in and killed a lot of people. Yes, a terrible, terrible thing. Just like the terrible disaster in LA. A terrible thing where people race into your community and kill a whole pile of innocent people. Terrible. And the world was with Israel. In fact, I knew nothing about Israel. I thought Israel is this really interesting country. It's for highly technological. It's connected to America. It's an interesting place. I'd love to visit there. But to justify the outright murdering of people in their thousands, and people who have nothing to do, children have nothing to do with any kinds of atrocities or actions that a bunch of desperate people do to others, adults do to others. But to justify killing tens of thousands of people based on a really terrible act that's been committed on them. It's like my father once said, 2 rights don't make a wrong. I've got that wrong, actually. 2 wrongs don't make a right. 2 wrongs don't make a right. And so, what have I done? I felt in my heart that I needed to do something. I needed to be like the guy, there's a famous guy in a picture where all the people are doing the Nazi salute and he refused. And he suffered for it. But I felt I needed to do something. And I thought, but it's so easy. All I have to do is just express myself on my channel, post to my 800 friends on Facebook all of the really good videos and articles and debates and discussions about what's going on. And then hopefully people would see this and they would spread it and we'd see the inhumanity of what's going on, and eventually I would just like an ant in a colony. I would just be a ripple in a pond. I would be contributing. But also I got involved in trying to local groups. I went to see a movie called No Other Land, which was a movie created by an Israeli young man and a Palestinian young man, and mostly based on small farming communities who were being pushed out of their homes by the Israeli IDF, and they had mostly used real footage from mobile phones and their own cameras. But what was interesting about this was that it was very sort of matter of fact. You could see these real people and their real lives and what was happening. And it was an Israeli and a Palestinian. This wasn't about a Palestinian group telling us how bad Israel were or vice versa. This was two guys, and these two guys wanted to be friends and wanted to make a contribution to peace. And those guys now have won lots of awards, and I really urge you, if you get the chance to see it, go and see it. But when you see it, it's very upsetting. And it's not upsetting because there's horrible things going on. There is pretty terrible things going on in it, but that's not what's upsetting. What's upsetting is how you identify with these people and how you understand they're just like us. They're human beings, children and mothers and fathers and grandfathers. And the kinds of things that are being done to them, no human being should have to endure. No human being. And those two brave guys have had all sorts of issues because of the fact that they've been expressing themselves with this sort of unity. But also they're struggling to get a distributor in the US. You know, hi Hollywood, here's your opportunity. Here's your opportunity to show solidarity with other people who are struggling, who've lost their homes, who've lost members of their families, got nowhere to go. To just say, okay, this movie is a healing movie. This movie can help. Let's help to get it distributed. Why can't Netflix and Amazon Prime just say, we're putting this thing for free on our apps for everybody to watch for nothing? And so I'm deeply frustrated because I mentioned about those two girls, one holding the other girl on her shoulder, walking along the street and saying, how would we feel? Well, that happened in Gaza, and you just go on to YouTube and type in two girls walking Gaza injured, and you'll see the shocking reality of a young girl walking miles carrying her sister who's been hit by a car on her shoulder, trying to find a hospital. And people say, oh, but you know, if they don't look like us, they are not blonde and blue-eyed, we don't care about them. Those people even look like us. Just look at them. They're not green with tails and antennas. They're human beings, just like us, with eyes and ears and mouths. They're similar heights. You know, we could donate blood. We could probably donate organs in some cases, depending on our blood types. Yeah, sometimes the skin colour is different because of the sun. That's it, the sun trying to protect us all by adapting us a little bit. Yeah, they speak a different language. They're not religious fundamentalists. Have a look at Norderland. They remind me very much of my childhood and local people in small holdings with a small farm, just trying to live. And so, you know, I posted everything I possibly could over the last few months because I thought, do you know what? We have so much power. And I mean we the silent majority, we've got so much power. And we live in a society where it's all made out to be impossible. Oh, it's impossible. You can't change it. The troubles in the Middle East have been going on for generations. It's impossible to fix this. And it's complete BS. It's so easy to fix. Do you realise that if Biden had made one call to Netanyahu and said, stop, or we're not giving you anything anymore. If Keir Starmer had said, yeah, come on Biden, we're making that call. It would have all just stopped, and lives, thousands and thousands of lives would have been saved. No money, just saying stop. Easy peasy. And then the trouble's there. Well, the reality is that for 1,000 years, Muslims and Christians and Jews lived perfectly happy side by side. And this idea that religion should be used as some sort of, war tactic is so disgusting. All these religions, Christianity, Judaism, the Muslim religion, and all the mystical traditions, Sufism, mystical Christianity, the Hermetic principles, mystical Judaism, they all have so much in common, and it's all about peace and love and respect. Tell me what you really would think if Jesus was to suddenly come back to this planet next week and land near his home place in Gaza and look around. What do you think he would say? Would he say, "Oh, yes, God looked down. He looked down on the universe, and then he picked out, among the billions of universes, of galaxies, he picked out the Milky Way, and then he zoomed in to the billions of planets, and he picked out the solar system with the Earth, and then he zoomed in on the Earth, and he found this tiny little place, and he said, 'This belongs to my people, the Israelis, and everybody else can get off.'" Really? Do you think he would say that? Do you know about him? Just reading about this guy who walked around bare feet, was loving and kind to everybody, shared and gave away everything he had, and got crucified. My feeling is he would cry. He would be very upset about what he was saying. And he would do everything to help everyone, the victims of the tragedy of October 7th, the hostages, and especially the people of Palestine. And then he would have been killed. Somebody on the Israeli side would have had him killed, because he probably would start to gather a whole pile of people around him and start to become too powerful for them. And that's the whole hypocrisy of this. It's disgusting that religion has been used in this way. Even the Pope disagrees with this. America is allegedly a Christian country. Christians are spat at in Israel. Christians have been thrown out of their homes. Christians have been killed and murdered in Israel. And if you look at the UK, the amount of beautiful, kind, caring Jewish people who want nothing to do with this, who say we want nothing to do with this. This is not Judaism. This is Zionism. And the amazing people who've got into governors and senators and MPs and all that stuff, with placards, and said stop. We were treated like criminals. Really, they're just treated like criminals. And I feel a kind of shame that I haven't done that. Yeah, I've gone on walks and stuff, but I haven't been brave enough to walk in to some building shouting, "Stop this genocide." They're the true heroes. They're the people. They're the people who basically in a few years' time will be respected and remembered for what they've done. But then it's too late, because so many people will have died in Gaza. So many people have already died in Gaza. Unnecessarily. And so the other thing I wanted to say about this is, on a global level, what does it mean for us? We've spent tens of thousands of years living in survival mode, hunting, using great deceptive tactics to find, ways to survive using this amazing brain that we've got. We've outcompeted everything on the planet. We've managed to find ways to live in the most inhospitable conditions, either hot or cold climates. But we're one tribe. We're always one tribe, but we're clearly one tribe now, and it's easy to see. We are one tribe. This idea that we can just sort of go, oh, it's the Chinese, oh, it's the Russians, oh, it's, Muslims, Africans, black versus white. It's absolutely a disaster for us and our world. If we don't understand that we're all one tribe, all one people, and we've got to start being and feeling like one people, understanding that the child who gets murdered and killed, the black child in Africa who's murdered and killed for no reason, is our sister, is our brother, is part of our global family. And we must do everything we can to help and stop these atrocities, especially in the West. We cannot call ourselves civilized until we change to understand this fundamental principle. We can't. It's uncivilized nations that do the types of things that we are doing in the West. And if you want to look at the numbers, I often see these bar charts on the internet saying, the country with the biggest economy, country that produced the most wheat, whatever it might be. If you really want to see a bar chart of the countries that have murdered and killed more people than any other in the world in the last 100 years, it's easy. You'll see the Nazis ranked really high, and you'll see America has been so involved in forever wars all around the world that millions have also died because of the American policies, American warmongering policies, and that continues today. So we need to be honest with ourselves. Religions, there's an obsession with trying to demonize the Muslim religion. No, they don't really care about Hindu or about Buddhist or, Jewish or any of these. They say, oh, well, these people are anti-Semitic and so on. But I never really seen that. But I have seen a constant agitation, a constant focus on the Muslim religion. But again, look at your bar chart. Look and see which religion has killed the most people in the world. And it's the Christian religion. The Crusades, women being burnt at the stake because they believed had a different perspective on what God might be. God is love, right? You're burnt at the stake. The meshing of religion with power and control. The Roman Catholic Church. I was brought up in a country where St. Patrick was a god. It was like, oh my gosh, St. Patrick. Every year we have parades. This amazing guy who came and killed all the snakes. And when I pulled on my mum's coat strings and said, but Mum, there was no snakes. She said, don't mind, son, don't mind. It's a story. But the snakes that St. Patrick was talking about were the serpentines, were the pagans. He was about exterminating the pagans. And then we ended up in Ireland with a religious cartel. The Roman Catholic Church basically running the whole country. Setting all of the moral agendas and everything else. And even if, probably up until the 80s, a TD or MP wanted to get himself elected as a candidate in Parliament, the parish priest would have to have some say about whether that person was suitable or not. And the scandals. Again, you see this demonisation. Pakistani grooming gangs. First of all, Pakistan is a country with millions and millions of people who are decent, honourable people. You don't need to stigmatise a country. The second thing is, there's so much accusation of child abuse coming out now. all around the world and the Western world that has got nothing to do with Muslim or Pakistani traditions. The Catholic Church in Ireland, the resignation of the head of the UK's Church of England recently. Recently a retired MP in the UK. America with hundreds of thousands of missing children. So we have to kind of look at ourselves. And this is why I've woken up to the fact that everything I was led to believe about the morals of the West, particularly America, have broken down. And we have to look at ourselves and say, how are we contributing as a society to what's happening in the world and the tragedies that are unfolding and the deaths of people, innocent people? And it's clear that we have quite an influence. But I don't see this in debates. I see ego everywhere. People trying to blame other people. Blame anybody but themselves. When it's clear, it's as clear as daylight that we in the West, in the US, the UK, and to a certain degree European countries, we're total hypocrites. We're participating in things that are truly and utterly despotic. And we have so much power to stop it all, just like that. Imagine how much money we could give to rebuilding Gaza, to helping the innocent people in that country, to helping the people who've lost their homes in LA, if we just stopped giving all these weapons, producing these weapons and giving them to people to kill others. And it goes much further than that. Just look at the Ukraine situation. You know, a couple of years ago, there were flags everywhere. The country was in solidarity with Ukraine. Where have the flags gone? Where has it all gone? And why? Because if you listen to the people who actually know what's going on in Ukraine, it's much more complicated than the big bad evil Putin coming in and trying to take over the world. That is a lie. And it's been debunked and proven to be a lie by multiple independent experts. We in the West, America with its proxy, the UK, poked the Russian bear in the eye for all sorts of selfish reasons. And we were the catalyst that caused the war that has happened there. And, you know, whoever is at fault, why aren't we talking about the hundreds of thousands of young men who are being fed to what's called a meat grinder in those countries? The meat grinder, they call it. Ukrainian men and Russian men. I'm sure some women as well, but in the main, soldiers that are being brutally killed every single day with technology like drones and military hardware and so on. And yeah, I see bits of it. You know, I see an article on some sort of newspaper or some sort of YouTube video from a legacy media showing how a drone has dropped down into some bunker somewhere and managed to kill somebody. There's even no humanity in this. It's like war is just a game. War is a disaster. War should never ever happen unless it's a last resort. And if you look at the West and you look at the UK and you look at the US, zero effort, and I say zero effort, has been made to try and start a dialogue to stop, just say, let's have a peace deal. Let's just stop for the moment. Let's just put up the flag and say, hold on, let's stop the war and see what we can do. So the moral high ground of the UK and the US and Europe is broken to pieces. And even if today it isn't, it will come out. It will come out eventually. And so I would say to you, share the videos that you see from respected people. Jeffrey Sachs or John Mearsheimer, people who don't take sides, people who have got knowledge and expertise and understand what's going on. Military experts, Colonel Douglas MacGregor. Respected people who understand war, understand diplomacy, and are willing to tell the truth and say, this is not right, this is wrong. They don't demonize others, they just say what they actually believe based on facts and experience. Share these videos. You may just be an ant, I'm just an ant, but as a colony we're massively powerful. We need to drown the internet with the energy and our messages which say, no, not in our name. We do not want to see innocent people murdered and killed. For power-hungry maniacs, warmongers, military-industrial machinery, deluded politicians, or just mad people. No, we will not pay our taxes for this. We will not support it. And we will tell everybody else about what's going on. And we will share the wisdom of others. That's what we need to do. That's what I've been doing and I will continue to do. So thanks for listening, and I hope to see you again soon with my next video. Bye bye for now.